I'm sure many of you have heard preachers urge you to, besides reading the Bible, to read around the Bible, to read commentaries on the scriptures. And sometimes that's a very good thing to do because we don't always have the correct background or the understanding of the culture from which these writings were produced. But sometimes the commentators really stretch it. I read once a commentary on this gospel where they say, well, John, of course, had it all correct, but his disciples didn't understand Jesus, so he sent them to ask these questions. Are you the one who is to come, or are we looking for somebody else? Are you the Messiah? John had it wrong. You heard that last Sunday. He's talking about the wrath of God and destruction and violence that the Messiah is going to bring. And he points out Jesus to everybody as the Messiah, and then Jesus goes around doing exactly the opposite. No thunderbolts, no wrath, no anger. So Jesus has to correct John's understanding of himself, of Jesus. He has to correct John because John has misunderstood how God intends to be among us in the person of the Messiah, who we recognize as Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus comes with healing, with mercy, with forgiveness, lifting people up, not tearing them down. Readings like this prompt me to ask myself, do I have it right? I mean, most of us have been doing this Christian thing for a long time, and we assume we've got it correctly, but we need to question that once in a while, and readings like this cause us to do that. Is my view of God among us in the person of Jesus God's view of himself among us in the person of Jesus? I mean, many of us, older folk, we were raised up in a very moralistic approach to Christianity, to religion. Keep the commandments, obey the rules, sit up straight. But there's only one way God wants to be among us, and that's the way he showed in the person of Jesus of Nazareth. And that wasn't keep the rules, obey the commandments, sit up straight. It was the way of healing, forgiving, binding, loosing. It was the way of mercy. Listen to the prophet of our own times, Pope Francis. It's exactly what he's telling us. Every day he preaches at his daily masses. It's published. You can buy his homilies. They're very short. But they're right on target because he's saying exactly what God once said among us in the person of Jesus. And the only proper, acceptable response to what Jesus has brought us is to behave in the same way among his people as God behaved among his people in the person of Jesus. And what does that mean concretely? Now let's get down to the personal. Let's get down to my life, your life. It means forgiving each other, pardoning each offenses, ceasing to judge others. If you don't judge, then you really don't have any business forgiving because you haven't judged. Heal the hurts that you discover in relationships. Bind up the wounds that society has inflicted upon itself over the course of time. Mend relationships, personal relationships, family relationships, parish relationships, national relationships, international relationships. This is what the Messiah is all about. He's not about getting us to heaven. He's taking care of that. John the Baptist finally got it right. We know that because in Luke's gospel, he preaches the Messiah And they ask him, well, what shall we do? And it's interesting to read what he tells people to do, exactly what Jesus was doing. Being honest, forgiving each other, taking care of each other's needs. So the question that has arisen from these readings for me is, have I got it right? Have I had it right all these years? Am I listening to Jesus or to Pope Francis in our own time? Or am I listening to my own heart? Because a person of prayer will be in touch with this same Messiah all the time and will hear the right things. And so my heart is a place to go to know how to be the John the Baptist of my time. Because folks, I hate to tell you this, that's our job description. John had his place. He reminded people of the coming of the Messiah. And we are called, as St. James reminds us in that second reading, that's not our job. Our job is to remind ourselves and each other of the Messiah's return for which we await. John the Baptist's job description is now ours. Preparing the way of the Lord, preparing for the Lord's return. The experience of Christmas, when we remember the first coming of the Lord, will be helpful, only to the extent that we prepare ourselves, our families, our neighbors for his return.